Now, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has cautioned interstate road transport operators against arbitrary and unexplained fare increases during the ongoing Yuletide travel period. The Commission's Corporate Affairs Director, Ondaje Ijagwu, issued the warning in a statement following a surge in consumer complaints from several parts of the country. The FCCPC acknowledged that several demand, operational pressures, and other legitimate cost factors may affect transport pricing. However, it warned that consumers are entitled to clear, accurate, and timely information on fares before travel. Now, Nigeria's Yuletide fuel market has shifted from scarcity-driven price spikes to relative stability and gradual price moderation, mainly due to subsidy reforms and the emergence of large-scale domestic refining. All of these have their own effects on the cost of transportation, especially for those traveling for the holidays. Now, here's a breakdown of what it has been like. From the year 2019, for instance, private movement, there was a slight decrease at 145 naira per litre, generally stable but minimal scarcity as at 2019. Now, regulated pricing regime with partial subsidy, controlled imports, and government-led price modulation. There was a lot of conversation around that. What's going to happen? This is not the way to go. In 2020, there was a slight movement upwards. Announcement down, a reduction was announced, even though it had moved over. It was announced, a reduction was announced. And it remained uneven at 165 per litre, localized scarcity and price divergence. It goes to certain parts of the country, the prices were raging, and in some other parts it was at 160 or thereabout. Now, that happened to be the COVID-19 period. There were disruptions, weak enforcement of official price bans. Subsidy regime was still active at that time. In 2021, December again, the price movement, there was unofficial price hikes between 165 naira 77 kobo per litre. From then there was a range. Again, if you go to certain parts of the country, at that time the prices were between 180 in some parts of the country to 230 to 250. Widespread Yuletide scarcity, especially in the southern part of the country and in the far north of the country. The policy situation at that time, import dependence, logistics disruptions, foreign exchange pressure, and supply bottlenecks. In 2022, there was an upward price pressure between 206 and 209 naira per litre in Lagos and Abuja. In other parts of the country, there was really no control, so to speak. Persistent scarcity during the festive period, high subsidy burden, global oil price volatility, delayed import, and distribution inefficiencies. Now, in 2023, there was that announcement in 2023 of when the president spoke. At that point, there was a boom, sharp increase, 600 to 670 naira per litre. That was the range. It was available everywhere, improved, but fuel remained very expensive. Availability was improved, but very expensive. Now, the removal of fuel subsidy in May 2023 meant full market deregulation, but it coincided with the naira depreciation by the government, and that also affected the costing of fuel. Come down to 2024, that was when the initial output from the Dangote refinery, which meant domestic refining, had come in, and that was going to be having an effect on the pricing. But the moderate reduction at deposits, at depots, was between 850 and 900 naira per litre, as at that 2024. Improved supply with limited scarcity. But then there was that hope that somewhere along the line, things were going to change. There was going to be an effect on imports. Imports were going to reduce because there was some refining going on locally. Come down to 2025. The prices have dropped marginally. I mean, at the depots, the price is about 60 to 700. But then if you go to the fuel station, selling between 800 and 900. scarcity-free Yuletide period. You walk into it, drive into any fuel station, you get fuel, expanded local refining capacity, improved supply chain efficiency, and competitive market dynamics. Guess what? You could go to some fuel stations. In fact, I think I saw on social media a fuel station that says buy up to 30 liters of fuel and get a packet or a carton of what they call now spaghetti. That's called competitive pricing, even if I say so myself. But I'm being joined in the studio by the Director of Corporate Affairs at the FCCPC, Mr. Ondaje Ijagwu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start with that, what we saw on social media. Buy 30 liters, get a carton of spaghetti. Did you see that coming?
In a deregulated economy, you could have that because it's an element of competition. It's promotional marketing. As you would see, people try to give some added value and incentives to consumers in different ways.
In order to draw them in.
Yes, in order to
let's
get
go
their
to
patronage.
Let's go to this warning that you put out there, the statement you put out there to transport interstate transport operators, not to do any arbitrary hike in fares. But what would make you think they would do that? Seeing that vehicle maintenance pricing seem not to have dropped, even though fuel pricing has somewhat come down a bit.
Yes, we are not saying that they are doing that, but we had some triggers. And what's that trigger? What are those triggers, rather? One of it is the fact that we had some heightened consumer complaints reaching us from different platforms, indicating that there had been an arbitrariness in that regard, that transport fares that were maybe like X Naira yesterday, a week before, suddenly like triple X Naira today. And looking at those kind of things and also looking at the market dynamics, we can tell that even when you talk about fluctuation in the different elements, they don't happen as rapid as this has happened. So when we see those kind of situations, we will definitely have to sound the alarm warning to say, look, if it is that people are colluding, if it is that they are being exploitative, then they would have to take caution because we'll come after them. But we don't just get up and come. We would have to investigate and then come by our findings. It is our findings that would actually let us know whatever are those proportionate maybe penalties or corrective measures that we could put in place.
Okay, I was just trying to find out something here. Flight tickets, for instance.
Yes.
Flight tickets, I mean, people are spending as much as 500,000 naira for a one-way ticket to some parts of Nigeria. I mean, is that not insane? And then right now, to travel between Lagos and Abuja, or from Lagos to the east, or whichever way you want to go, could be spending as much as 100,000 naira.
Yes, we wouldn't as a
now some will say that this happens, these prices usually go up around this Yuletide period. But should that be the case?
As a regulator, we won't sit and say it's insane, but what we'll do is to actually interrogate why it is happening. And we have started that process. You know, before we issued the release on road transport, we had done one on the aviation sector. And we had also announced that we had started an expanded investigation in that sector as a result of what we are seeing in the market. Because one of our mandate is to actually monitor economic activities and be able to either advise government or take necessary steps as could check some consumer detriments that are evident. And so we're doing this on our own, and we're also getting those regular triggers. So at the end of the day, we'll make our findings, definitely, and we'll be able to tell whether this was exploitative or whether it was just an issue of demand and supply. If it was an issue of demand and supply, or if it is, then definitely we may not have much to do there. But if for any reason we are able to tell that from our findings that certain collusion or some exploitative activities must have happened, definitely we will get into it.
Okay, so I ask again. So if, let's say, when you finish your investigation, you find out that the Nigerians are being exploited, say, to go from Abuja to maybe Lagos, they are spending as much as 500,000 naira. What would the agency be doing to? Would the agency be finding that would the agency be asking maybe the airlines to do a refund to Nigerians, or would they just be fine and that will be the end of it?
It depends on the gravity of what has happened there. If for any reason we're able to uncover certain things, a number of measures could be taken. First, I think, would be corrective measures to ensure that this does not happen again, because that would be our primary goal. Other ones would be to also let certain actors pay for their, if you like, in this sense, sins. If you are able to commit certain infractions, regardless of extant laws and regulations, then you would pay the penalty for it. So those kind of things could happen. And if there are also individual cases, because consumer issues are two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And like they say, it takes two to tango. For instance, we can't also sit at the commission and say a consumer has been injured by a certain operator. If we have complaints that we are able to investigate and uncover certain things, if you have in any way exploited a consumer, sure, we can ask for a refund.
Okay.
If it also warrants maybe compensation, we could also make certain orders that would also enable the consumer get justice.
Okay, just before I let you go, the last guest we had here was talking about the briefing by the Minister of Information and National Orientation, where he talked about the indices, the economic indices that are happening, and the fact that inflation is dropping. But he was wondering why the cost of living has not come down. Landlords are increasing rents arbitrarily, even though the cost of cement seems to be coming down. The cost of flour, a bag of flour, has come down. Sugar, the cost has come down. But the loaf of bread, the cost of a loaf of bread has refused to come down. And he's wondering what is going on. Is your commission looking into this as well?
That's an interesting angle. We have some departments in the commission that are on a daily basis looking at these issues. But let me also say that some of the things that happen in the marketplace, you can't just even entirely let the consumer go. If the consumer notices that he's being exploited, it is also his responsibility, one, to make his choice carefully.
Yeah.
So that he doesn't go back to the person who is exploiting him. It is also his responsibility to enable the authorities to know that he's been exploited. So when we have those and also lifestyle is also part of what we're experiencing during this Yuletide season. Nothing says that we must all head to a particular place during this season.
All right, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Ondaje Ijagwu is the Director of Corporate Affairs, FCCPC. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So grateful to
Good to have you here.
Yes,
we look forward to having you again.
Yes, sure.